From Oscar Steakhouse, inside the Plaza Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, you're on the corner of Main Street. Welcome to the only podcast produced by and recorded in the Las Vegas Hotel Casino. From gaming to dining to entertainment to sports to Vegas history, this is the place to be for the inside scoop, because this is the place to be downtown. Now, here's Plaza CEO Jonathan Jossel.
So I'm here with McKenna from the RJ. Hi, McKenna.
Hello.
McKenna reached out to me about a week or two ago and said how long have you been doing the podcast for, and had listened to an episode with Oscar's dinner series and the live one we did, and decided to come in and watch us with our upcoming guest that you're about to hear from. But it reminded me of why we did the podcast in the first place and starting out. So I think we're going to have a little conversation about it. And if you want to share any of your thoughts, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Yeah, I thought this would be an interesting story because it's rare to hear from folks at the top of the casino. And also, it's just a fun perspective. You guys have a really good mix of nostalgia and what's going on in Vegas, and then just interesting conversations that people like to listen to. So I thought we could start with the inception of the podcast.
Yeah.
Tell me about the beginnings.
Yeah, so the podcast began in 2020, and we were thinking of more organic ways to interact with our customers. We were seeing, obviously, social media and influences and the way the world was moving. And then the pandemic happened, and it was like, wait a second, the podcast is a great way to stay in touch. So we did a couple of episodes. They were terrible. We were a mess. It was me and, at the time, Lisa Melmert, who was in the marketing department here. And it was just not well done. We were struggling. So we got a producer who remotely was filming them for us, recording them for us and editing them for us during the pandemic. Gary, who obviously was our day one partner. And what we realized very quickly was when we put this thing out, people were desperate for their Vegas fix. They still wanted to hear about what was happening. They still wanted to stay in touch. And we were just talking about the shutdown process, some of the other things that happened. And then there was a few episodes we had done prior where it was like my story and a few other people's. But we then went through the pandemic putting out this content. And I think that's how we grew traction, because people still couldn't come here. And there was nothing to do. And then we realized we had an audience. And we also realized that we didn't need to monetize this thing, because the best form of monetizing it was the customers coming here, hearing about us. And it's a really interesting and easy way for us to interact with our customers on a regular basis, stay in touch. And I meet people almost every day that come here because they listen to this podcast. So we're about 120 episodes in, or maybe more. And we did realize we could have just talked ourselves for 100 plus episodes. So we started inviting guests, and most of them were just people I knew or friends, and just took on a life of its own from there.
Yeah. Talk to me more about the guests. How do you decide what kind of conversation to have? What leads you through the conversations and all that jazz?
Yeah, so thank you for saying conversations, because it's important to me that it's not an interview. I'm not an interviewer. We want to make these conversations. And so we want to have guests where I can feel like between me and Gary, we can have a conversation, talk about what it is they do and how it's relevant. But we pretty much, it started out just as people we were friends with or I knew. And then we do get people that reach out to us that say, hey, can I come on to talk about something I'm working on or something that's happening? And so we do that. And then it's just anything that's happening in town. So the next couple of episodes will be a lot to do with Life is Beautiful, the Neon Festival that's coming up in a couple of months. So we'll talk about things happening in town, guests relevant to that. There's only so many people that I'm friends with and know. So sometimes we do have to reach out to people through third parties. But generally, people are pretty receptive to it now that we've built a decent brand. And as long as it's to do with Vegas, hospitality, or something close to one of those two things, the history of Vegas, we'll talk about it. And hopefully the guests find that interesting.
Do you ever have guests that are nervous about what you guys are talking about?
No, some people want us to send them questions prior, or not even questions, subjects prior that we're going to talk about, and they may want us to stay away from other things. But the cool thing is, because we record this and because it's not live, except for the one we did do that you listened to, which probably was a bit of a shit show, I can say shit. Because we record it, we can edit it. So if they say something that they don't want to say or they're nervous about it, then it can be edited and we can remove that. But very rarely, in the early days, we used to listen and check that we didn't say anything. Now we just pretty much put it out the way we talk about it. But we've gotten better as podcasters. You should have heard us on the first one.
Now I'm going to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about guest and audience reaction. What do they say they like most? Which ones are they listening to? That kind of thing.
It's funny. So a lot of people said you need to get people with bigger social media followings to grow the podcast. But a lot of our best listen to episodes are just really random historical episodes, very sort of niche gaming things, like more tech-driven gaming manufacturers. That's been our most listened to. And then we had like Flavon, who's one of my good friends, and it really was one of the least listened to episodes. And you would think, why is that? But I think it's just our audience is very much a Vegas, this is an insult, but Vegas nerd, loves the industry, loves the history. They love the dinner series. The dinner series have taken on a whole life because of the podcast. And we put all the dinner series out there. I'd say it's really the very specific historical and very gaming driven episodes that do the best. Not even some of the biggest gaming operators have necessarily been the best listened to episodes. But I don't know how you listen to your podcast. For me personally, if I like a podcast, I don't listen to every single one. I find a subject that I'm interested with that host, and then I'll listen to that. And I don't think many people listen to every single episode, although I do meet fans or customers that do listen to every episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm a 1.5 times speed, as many podcasts as I can kind of
Oh,
person.
okay. All right. Yeah.
Probably not good for my brain, but I
that's
do
a
it
good
anyway.
way- That's a good way to do it.
How does authenticity play into this podcast? Like you mentioned, social media influencers and content creators here in Vegas, that's their success,
Yeah.
being the real people who come to Vegas and hang out in Vegas. So what do you think of that, and how does it play into this podcast?
Thank you. That is, I think, the key to this. And I think why we have seen a great reaction to this and built a good audience is because we're not afraid to market other properties. We're not afraid to market other events. We will have a competitor on the podcast to talk about what they're doing. We try to be as open and honest as we can, give people insight to things they would never hear otherwise. And even the subject today is something that most people probably would shy away from, but we're going to talk about it because it's a part of the industry. And I think exactly what you just said is what makes it good. We've had a couple of guests on multiple times, but we've had one guest on 3 times, and that's Vital Vegas, or Scott Robin. And he often talks about there's no other casino doing this kind of transparent, authentic look into the business. And so that's something that we pride ourselves on and want to keep doing. And I guess if anyone told me you can't talk about this, I probably wouldn't do the podcast anymore. It's the fact that we are a single-owned operator, single-owned business, and can do these things.
What do you see in the future of the podcast?
I don't know. We've debated stopping doing it altogether. We've debated the fact that maybe you need to take it to YouTube and get a video done with it. Right now, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, as you said, planning the guests, scripting it in terms of what do you want to talk about, following up, sitting here, doing the interviews or the conversations. I just did my own problem. It's all of those things. So it's a lot of work, but I think for me, I enjoy doing it as long as we still meet people every day that listen to it, that came downtown because of it. Even if they only went to Le Thai because we said it was one of the great Thai restaurants in downtown or one of the great restaurants in downtown. If I meet someone that says they went to Le Thai, to me, it's still working because we want people to come downtown. We want to promote the area. And I think that's why we're going to continue to do it, keep finding guests. And as downtown's changing so much, we have a guest lined up in about a month or 2. That's a huge name. And as long as we can keep getting great stories, new developments, and share those stories, I think we'll keep doing it, at least in this format. I don't know about YouTube down the road.
Yeah, like you said, even more planning involved with that front.
And I got to worry about what I look like, and I can't eat and drink and do all the shit that I'm doing anyway.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's the questions I have for you guys.
Thank you. And thank you for helping to spread the word about the podcast. We appreciate it. Welcome, everybody, to On the Corner of Main Street. It's a very big day for us here today. We have a guest that Gary will shortly introduce. But before we do that, we also have the Review Journal here listening to a recording for the first time ever. So we've been doing about 125 episodes, and today we have the Review Journal with us listening. McKenna, welcome. Thank you for being with us and helping us to make On the Corner of Main Street podcast even more relevant, because that's the purpose of this, is to get this out to as many people as possible.
The award-winning podcast.
The award-winning podcast.
Best of Las Vegas.
And you will know after today's podcast that we truly will talk about anything because a casino typically wouldn't do a marketing piece, although they should, and it's an important part of the business, what we're going to be talking about today. But we've been discussing this, and it was always something that was on my mind, but never came up to do a full podcast about. And I think it's important because when I grew up in England, I was a gambler. I gambled myself. That's probably why I ended up in Las Vegas doing a podcast and being the CEO of a hotel casino. Was all started with betting on dogs and the bookies in England when I was probably 16. And I've been gambling my entire life. I understand it. I understand some of the psyche. And my thesis at university was the socioeconomic impacts of gaming and bringing that to what would happen if it came to England. Gary, with that long introduction, why don't you say who our guest is today, what we're doing here, and then we'll go from there.
Perfect. Joining us today is the Executive Director of the Dr. Robert Hunter International Problem Gambling Center. Welcome, Stephanie Goodman, to On the Corner of Main Street. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And Stephanie is also a good friend, actually been a part of the Plaza team at one point in her life. So it's not just about problem gambling and what we'll be talking about there, but also just Stephanie's story, her career. As you'll note, her last name is Goodman, and we are sitting here in Oscars. So there is a connection there that we'll touch on shortly. But I wanted to share a story with you, Stephanie, that I thought was very interesting. And you'll describe for us what problem gambling is and what you focus on. But when I moved to Las Vegas as a 23-year-old in 2007, and I was trying to learn the business and understand what was happening here, I recall we used to own a casino called the Westin. You remember that? The Westin was on Fremont and 11th Street. And today it's owned by Tony Hsieh's estate. Yeah. And they still have it. It's been closed since 2013-ish, 2012, 2013, I want to say. And I recall sitting in a meeting and saying that the Westin didn't do very well as a business, but it would have spikes on certain days. And I didn't understand what these spikes were. What were we doing on those days that caused people to come in and gamble? And I remember one of the managers saying to me, "No, Jonathan, that's correlates to payday." That's when people got paid, and they would then come in and play with their paychecks. And I remember having a depressing feeling about that and thinking, that's not the business I want to be in. That's not at all what we tried to do as Las Vegas, as a city. I don't believe that's what they tried to do. That's not the target audience. But it was an eye-opening experience for me to hear that, and probably led to the sale and ultimate closure of the Westin at the time. But I think it was the first time I had heard that and been exposed to that.
Oh, I believe it. This is what happens. We have individuals that come in, and it doesn't matter how they're getting their money. They want to get to that table, they want to get to that machine, and they want to gamble. So I'll give you a little background if you want to hear. Just problem gambling is actually one of the 3 DSM-5 addictions, which is a little technical, but what that means is that it is the same kind of addiction as drug addiction and alcohol addiction. And so when people have a stigma surrounding it, if they do have a problem and they think, oh, I'm just too weak, I shouldn't go to the casino, but I'm too weak not to go, that actually is not the case. You have a biological condition, it's a real addiction, and it's not your fault. And I think that's really our biggest message out there, is to tell people, I know we had some concern, like, it is problem gambling, you are a casino, but this is actually a story of success, because we have a center here in Nevada that is probably the largest in the country, and it has a success rate that is 5 times, 6 times greater than what the national success rate is for recovery.
That's fantastic. So we're going to come to the center, and we're going to come to the symptoms that you're looking for and what exactly all of this is. But before we do that, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay.
Tell everyone who you are. How'd you come to Las Vegas? How'd you get the last name Goodman? What's your connection to the...
It's so long. The whole podcast is going to be gone.
We're going to start somewhere. And we're sitting here in Oscar Steakhouse, which what could be more iconic than this?
It's my favorite steakhouse and one of my very favorite restaurants.
You had to say that. Thank you.
No, I don't. I actually, and honestly, even my children, who are they have a distinguished palate, they love Oscars.
That's good.
So I am Stephanie Goodman. I started out as Stephanie Boxo. I'm born and raised in Las Vegas. I grew up pretty much at Caesar's Palace. My dad was a baccarat dealer there, and I played tennis. I was a ball girl for the Allen King tennis tournament. I love Las Vegas. I love gaming.
You can't just casually say your dad was a baccarat dealer at Caesar's Palace. What year are you talking about?
He was during the good years. He was there from probably 78 for 30 years.
Good years meaning when the mob ran it?
No, I wouldn't say it's the mob, but I'd say it was a time when baccarat dealers made great money in Las Vegas, and they did well, and it was a very exciting time. I think the 80s were very exciting. So were the 70s.
Did you ever get to visit him at work or hear any stories this time?
Well, that's where I was going, every night we'd sit, no, don't be sorry, we'd sit at the dinner table, and I just loved to hear the stories of these whales that would come in and bet the amount of money. Back then, $100,000 a hand was a significant amount of money, and even sometimes $500,000 a hand. And these were people from all over the world that he had just sitting at his table, and the names that you would recognize. And he was always the dad that got autographs for his kids, so he'd always come home with some celebrity or some person that was a world leader, and he was that dad.
You mean the world leaders were playing baccarat?
From the Middle East, there were some, yes.
I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm
So,
sure.
And that was in the days of the big baccarat show.
Oh, yeah.
They had.
I've seen, I don't know if everyone did that, but the Plaza did that. That was a great picture of
Did
the
they?
big baccarat show.
Yeah.
It was a big deal. Baccarat was big back then.
I think it's
So,
making a comeback.
I don't know.
I think
don't
it is.
know.
I see it a lot more now. But one quick shout out. We got Sarah and Natasha with us here today, the dream team of marketing at the Plaza that helped set this up so we look more official for the RJ. We're not always this official. Sometimes we just sit in the bar with chocolate nuts or
I like
a
that
drink.
too.
But it looks very official today, so thank you,
Natasha's
Sarah
one of my
and Natasha.
favorites.
And just so you know, Lisa, who used to be at Plaza
know.
Marketing, used to be the co-host of this podcast. So
Aw.
she's not here anymore, but
I know.
she was an original
You got
with
me.
you.
You got
I
me. I'm
Gary
still here.
instead.
I'm still here.
I love Lisa too. Shout out to Lisa.
Shout out to Lisa. So carry on, please.
Okay, sorry. But anyway, I love gaming. And I think that it's part of the reason why I've been successful in this space is because I like to talk to industry as a fan of the industry. So back to my story,
Yeah.
my mother knew Carolyn Goodman before I was even born. And I'm sure that I was an arranged marriage because Carolyn told my mother when I was in the womb that she would save one of her boys for me. There's that. Moving forward all those years, I actually quit advertising. I was in gaming advertising when Carolyn called me and asked me if I wanted to work with Oscar Goodman. And everyone told me that he was going to be the worst mayor. It would be the worst decision of my life if I quit my advertising career and go work with Oscar. And I said, sounds like exactly the kind of thing I want to do. And I jumped in with both feet. And it was the greatest decision I ever made.
2 questions. What was your official role with him?
I was his chief of staff. I started out as
wow.
a special assistant. And then the last 2 years I was there, I was his chief of staff.
And what years of his mayoral terms were you there?
99 to 2005.
So the last ones?
The first ones.
Oh, the first one. Sorry.
I started
So you
in-
weren't there when he suggested drinking Bombay Sapphire to the
To the kindergartners.
To the kindergartners.
Absolutely. It's a great. He's also there, threatened to cut off thumbs.
You were there for that
graffiti.
part as well. You were his chief of staff for those. You wrote those speeches.
I did not write. No one writes anything
one
for
writes those
Oscar, as you
speeches.
well know. But no, it was a great time, and he was a mayor that changed the face of downtown. There's a lot of people that have done a lot down here, but Oscar's the first one that looked at the blight that was downtown in 99 and said, I can make this better. He looked at this site that you oversee here, and it was called the 61 acres back then.
Yep.
And that site was an unremediated railroad site. And everyone said, no one will touch that. And Oscar got Forest City related, all of these incredible developers to come out here and do RFPs for that site. And look, now we have the Smith Center, we have the Lou Ruvo Brain
Center.
Center.
By the way, if you
Cleveland
looked out the
Clinic.
window lately, there's a high-rise being built. There's 800 apartments being built. It's pretty crazy out there right now. That's a real city.
It's Oscar's dream, and
Yeah.
I was part of the 2020 project that essentially was the vision for 2020 back in 99.
Yeah.
And
As
all
Oscar-
of this was Oscar's dream, and he had that will. I mean, he's just a force of nature, and he
Yeah.
had that will to make it happen and make people realize that downtown is the core of Las Vegas. He always had an analogy to say that if the core of the apple is rotting, the apple's going to rot.
Yep,
And
that's one of his great quotes.
Yeah.
But also that it was a 12-year overnight success, and truly does feel like it's a 25-year overnight success now after their 25-year term. But as his chief of staff, do you have any great stories you can share with us from meetings or experiences you had with him?
I have one
that
that's
are-
politically. I have one that's politically relevant.
Okay.
Donald Trump came here. He was
Okay.
interested in the 61 acres, and
Like both their egos fit in the same room.
believe it or not, they actually do. And I think Carolyn has a great story of them going back to New York and being in Donald Trump's office in New York and the egos in the room. But what I will say is I was rarely intimidated by anyone because I worked for Oscar. He
Yeah.
was a really tough customer, and I really cut my teeth working for him. And Trump definitely was someone that was intimidating. He came there, he knew what he was talking about. It was very interesting, and then moving forward to see, oh my gosh, this character. So that was a great story. I met Michael Jackson. I remember going down to meet Michael Jackson, and it was right after all of these allegations came out and of him not doing the nicest things
Yeah.
with children. And Oscar said, "You're innocent until you're proven guilty." And he just,
Yeah.
he's always been a constitutionalist. He's that person that my parents used to say when I was growing up, "Thank God for Oscar Goodman, otherwise we wouldn't have any rights." And so
No, and by the way, the next dinner series is September the 18th. And Sarah, correct me, when does it go on sale? Friday? Because on Friday it goes on sale, and you'll be listening to this as of Thursday,
Yep.
which is tomorrow. But the subject matter for September the 18th is, and I think this is the greatest subject, I don't know why it's taken us so long to talk about this after however many dinner series we've done, how do you defend the indefensible? And that really is the story of Oscar's, like you just said, his innocent or proven guilty. And it's going to be a very interesting talk. So look out for the ticket sales on Friday.
Well, he had many indefensibles. And there was a case that he was working on. And at the time, the federal government had only spent more money on the JFK assassination case. So I'm sure that's a little tease, because I'm sure that will be one of the things. And he won that case, by the way. So there's a great story behind that. So I'll leave that for the dinner series.
Okay. Sounds good.
So anyway, I loved working for Oscar. I loved being his chief of staff. We'd work all day, and then we'd always have events in the evening. And he was amazing. He's the top smartest person I've ever met. He's brilliant. And I think sometimes people would underestimate him because of his gin and his not the cocktail waitresses, the showgirls.
Yep.
And he's just an incredible person. So I was working with him, and I actually did a lot of the work for redevelopment downtown, because we didn't have someone that was specific to downtown redevelopment, believe it or not, at the time. And it was great work. And I'd go out there and I'd represent Oscar and make sure that we got some of these deals done. And there was one deal in particular that I was very effective in, and it really started everything, and it's exciting. So then
but were you there when the NFL refused to come to Las Vegas and refused to let advertising in?
I was there on that call in 2002,
because
I
I
believe
think that's
it
going
was.
to tie in nicely to our story later on, when you see the proliferation of sports betting and gaming, especially as a country.
Yes.
And how it's come into sports. But you were there when they said they absolutely wouldn't let Las Vegas.
I was in the room when he made the call. It was nuts, because what happened was he essentially called the commissioner of the NFL, Tagliabue at the time, and he said, "How can you not have Las Vegas as a?" Basically, what happened? Let me go back. LVCVA called Oscar and said they won't run our spot. The spot wasn't anything except Las Vegas. It was just I think it was what happens here stays here. That was the spot. And they would not even run a Las Vegas spot because they were afraid of what it would do. And look, now you have Al Michaels telling you. That was
for the Super Bowl? Was it a Super Bowl ad?
That was for the Super Bowl ad. And LVCBA wanted to run it. They said no. And now you have Al Michaels telling you what the spread is. It's nuts.
Right. Yeah, no, of course. Like, this kick matters to some people, even though it's irrelevant to the game. They all know what they're talking about. And it's obviously, we hosted the Super Bowl, so I mean, it's a different world. But to see just in 2 decades where it's come from.
I cannot even believe what's happened in 2 decades.
Yeah.
It's really incredible. But there's a lot of money to be made there.
Oh, yeah.
When did you guys first meet?
I met you when you came here in 2007 at Lady Sylvia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam Cherry's
the bar. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was then. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that was open in 2007, but it probably opened not long after that.
Or maybe long after. Okay.
Yeah.
Around then.
Yeah, around then. Yeah. Yeah.
Ish.
There we go.
Ish.
And definitely when we did the remodel here, you joined us, right? So we're skipping this. I'm sure there was a period in between there where you did something else besides joining us over here. So what was that?
But this was the great.
This was the best part of that, of course.
This was exciting. So now we did your campaign. I think that was our brainchild, and it was really exciting. And it was amazing to be your ad agency at the time.
But you started an ad agency after you left Oscar.
Yes, I did. What I did is I married his son.
Okay. Right after being as his chief of staff?
I had to leave being chief of staff because I was engaged to his son.
Okay.
So yeah, we met while I was working for him. And then once we got engaged, I left City Hall, and it was a perfect time to leave because they had brought someone in to do the business redevelopment for downtown and do all that economic work. And so it was the right time.
Who was that?
The woman who came in and did it. I see her face and I don't recall her name.
Okay. No worries.
Yeah.
That's all right. Because we also talked on this podcast with Virginia, and I think she worked with Oscar as well for a period
Virginia
of time.
was the city manager at the time when I was there.
And
so when Virginia left, then Betsy Fretwell
she was
the
Oscar's city manager, and then Betsy came in. You're right. Okay.
So it was the old school days.
So what were your thoughts of the Plaza in 2012 when you started working with us compared to where you see it today?
You guys have done an incredible job. You're so grown up now. It's amazing. That's all
the
I can
Plaza
say.
Or me personally?
Listen, Emily, but it's the one that got you to grow up. But I will say that the Plaza is it's incredible what's happened here. This was always this iconic historical casino, but I think what Jonathan and his team have done is just really taken it to a new level. It's what we were talking about earlier. You're going to do the Life is Beautiful block party. That is awesome that it's all here. And I was saying It seems safer too. Sometimes people just, let their teenagers go and downtown.
Yeah.
That's not the best. I would let them go to the plaza for a block party, right?
Right. That's a good point.
You do the rodeo here. This is incredible. And I was here when we started doing all that work, and it's just wonderful. And what you've done to the property, it still has that Vegas feel. It still feels like old Vegas. It's one of the few places that they haven't torn down, right? So you've just built on the history of this place. We're sitting on a swimming pool right now. So this is incredible that we have this dome, that you have this Vegas feel. I brought my best friends from college. We were sorority sisters together. I brought them here for dinner. She was in town from Florida. She had the greatest memories of the plaza when she was a kid, and for her to come back here and have that nostalgia was just incredible. So, and by the way, you don't get that much in Las Vegas anymore because so much of it has changed. So that's what's wonderful about this property is you have held on to your history, and then you've also embraced what's happening in the future.
I love you for saying that, because that was our goal from the beginning. A lot of people said, knock it down, tear it down, rebuild it. You can't put lipstick on a pig, all those nice things that people say. But to be able to see it come back the way it's coming back, and knowing that we're just getting started, right? We're growing our market share, we're doing much better, the business is improving, but we couldn't have done anything that we're doing without Oscar and Carolyn, and then downtown Las Vegas improving. You couldn't do what we're doing without the apartments on the other side, without getting rid of the Greyhound bus station, without seeing Circa being built, the Golden Nuggets improvements. It really is the betterment of downtown, which has allowed us to thrive. And so we're a part of a great community as well that's allowed us to continue to embellish on the plaza and do fireworks every Friday night. Hopefully it's going to come back soon, more fireworks. But just to be able to do some of the initiatives we've undertaken can only happen with a better neighborhood and a better community. So we're very lucky that Oscar laid the groundwork for that.
100%.
Again, in 1999, basically.
100%. Yeah, it's wonderful.
When are we going to do a podcast about 2008 Jonathan Jossel?
We need somebody who remembers that. Natasha might remember the old Jonathan. But we do want to get onto the real crux of the subject. Stephanie's chomping at the bit to tell us about problem gambling. We could talk all day about the old days and about Stephanie's clients. But before we do that, what did you win? You got elected to some official...
Yes, I'm a university regent. Yes, we oversee higher education.
What does that mean?
It means there is a $900 million budget that the legislature designates to the higher education system. The higher education system consists of UNLV, UNR, we have 4 community colleges, we have Nevada State University, and we have the Desert Research Institute. So it's pretty exciting. We oversee all of that work, and it's a great group of individuals. There has been some dysfunction with the regents before, but this group we have in there, the majority are just really thoughtful, wonderful individuals.
It's an elected position?
It's elected.
Okay, this is not a rude question. Don't take it as an offensive question. Do you think you won because your last name's Goodman?
I think it's part of it.
Okay.
Listen, if I was a curmudgeon and I was out there campaigning and I didn't talk to people, but I am not a wallflower and I do get along with people and people liked me anyway. So of course, the Goodman. Also, Oscar came out and endorsed me, which was wonderful.
Okay.
I think that's why I won. I got the Oscar endorsement. But I just have to say this because it's fun, I raised 1/10 of the money and I still won by 20 points.
Some value in that Goodman name,
There's
Stephanie.
some value.
Mic drop right there.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the Problem Gambling Center. And I guess my first question is, who is Dr. Robert Hunter?
Dr. Hunter is actually...
Well, what's the name of the center?
It's the Dr. Robert Hunter International Problem Gambling Center.
See, our audience is already leaving when you start talking about problem gambling.
I know.
This is the thing. Our audience right now like, okay, it was nice listening. Thank you. I'm joking, you too. You can go. Come on. This is a very important subject, and we spend time talking about it with our compliance team and training people to make sure they understand what they're looking for in problem gambling. So this isn't a joking matter. We'll put on our serious
You know what?
hats
This
now.
is the thing. I think that this is a happy topic, right?
Okay.
Because how lucky are we that probably the best center in the entire country, the largest center in the country, is here in our backyard in Las Vegas, right? If you or someone you care about has a problem, there's help. And by the way, it's free. So we are state funded, and then we have industry sponsors that help us as well. And so we are a free place where you can get over your gambling addiction. And that's why this is a happy podcast,
Okay,
because we're
that's
letting
good.
people know if something's wrong, you've got the best place in the country to get help.
So what's the firstly, how did this center get started, and when did it get started?
We started it, actually it started before 96, just in Monte Vista, which was a place where they dealt with addictions. And then when that closed, the actual center opened up in 96. And then what happened is Dr. Hunter was able to really move the needle when it came to people recognizing that gambling is a real addiction. So it's the same as alcohol, it's the same as drugs. Your brain lights up the same under an fMRI. So that he was able to do that, which is huge. And so what our program does, it explains to you the science of the brain so you know you're not weak, it's not your fault. It also has a group therapy component so that you are sitting there with people who have the same problem, even though you think you might be the only one that has it. And then there's cognitive behavioral therapy, which we use, which basically retrains your brain so if you're going to have that urge to go and gamble and you know it's not the right thing to do, you're going to think about 8 or 9 things before you actually go do it. And by the way, 94% of people have a great time gambling, okay? It's a very small percentage. It's that 6% that actually have an addiction. The prevalence study was done a while ago, but we believe it's 6%. What we're talking about is something like you have a beautiful ski resort where everybody's skiing, but somebody's going to sprain their ankle. Somebody's going to break their leg. So we're just like that little medical hut at the bottom that's going to help people. When we talk about it, the majority of people are having an incredible time.
Okay.
How does it, I'm sorry, how does it compare to just like a standard Gamblers Anonymous program or calling
fun
like
stops.
1-800-GAMBLER, those types of options?
So we are treatment, right? GA is an important piece of your recovery, but you need the tools to know how to recover if you are going to essentially have an active recovery and be able to live a happy life, right? So Gamblers Anonymous is a great place to meet people that have similar problems that you can talk to, that you can relate to. But like I said, our program, we're a 6-week program. We're intensive outpatient therapy. But after COVID, we found out we have to work with our clients. Not everybody wants to come 3 hours a day, 4 days a week. And so we really work with our clients to make sure that they're getting the help that they need. So we are a program and treatment. And then once you get through that, Gamblers Anonymous is a great tool. Even actually while you're in treatment, Gamblers Anonymous is a great tool. The 1-800-GAMBLER is actually a number that you can call to find out if there is if you feel like you have a problem, you get the resources. So you would get referred to a center like us.
Do you have industry support for this? Is the Gaming Control Board involved? Do you have other operators that are involved supporting you in this initiatives?
I meet with the Gaming Control Board, and they are supportive with what we do. And so they have been a support, and that always hasn't been. So I'm grateful for that relationship with them. And we do have industry support. We have several properties that are here and some that are not here that are a great support. Las Vegas Sands still supports us. It's our biggest donor, and they have a great understanding of addiction and that this is important. And then we're state funded, so we get a chunk of money from the state. The legislature gives us money, and so that's incredible that we're able to have that, and we're able to provide the free service, and we don't turn anyone away. And that's really the beauty of the program, because clearly someone who may have a gambling addiction may also have a money problem.
But I would assume most of your clients, or not clients is the wrong word, but
They're
patients.
clients. We call them clients.
You do?
Yeah.
Are local.
Yes.
It's mostly locals.
Yes. They're all from the state of Nevada. And yeah, we're looking into a telehealth program just because our program's so significant. And this will segue into what I wanted to talk about too, is everything's on your phone now, right? So we are not big fans of the online gaming at all because it is too easy to access. And there are checks and balances there, and they say that they're able to help the individual, but it's so convenient. It's right on your phone. And I think that's very difficult for someone with a problem. And they'll say we have a responsible gaming program, but responsible gaming is different than problem gambling, because if you are able to game responsibly, you don't have a problem. If you're able to set limits, you don't have a problem. So I think
What in your mind is the definition of a problem? Because some people just say it's gambling money you can't afford to, but someone else might say, well, a problem is something you're doing every day. Even if you don't gamble money, even if you're very wealthy and you're gambling every day, you might still have an addiction. Doesn't mean it's as bad for you, but it's still an addiction. How do you define a problem?
We actually have a questionnaire on gamblingproblems.org. It's a questionnaire. You can take it. But some of those questions, are you supposed to be picking up your daughter at daycare, but you're letting her stay till the end of the day because you want to go gamble, right? So you're making decisions that are not decisions you would normally make, right? So are you chasing your losses, right? Do you think that if I just get that next win, I am going to be able to cover my losses? It's that kind of thinking. So it is gambling is the only addiction where you think if I can go back and do it one more time, I can get over it, okay? No other addiction, you're not thinking that if you have a heroin addiction or you have an alcohol problem, but gambling you are. And so that's why it's a very difficult addiction, because you feel if I can get back there and win it back, then it won't go away. I will say for this 6%, and this is a Debbie Downer moment, but for the 6%, gambling has the highest level of fatality and suicide ideation because the damage is so enduring.
Yeah. Okay.
How's the success rate at your facility compared to other ones across the country or your Gamblers Anonymous?
So after 1 year, if you stick with our program, there is a 44% success rate. And compared to the national success rate, which is only 8 to 10%, that is significant. But here's the real exciting part. If you come and see us twice a month, and we have all these meetings, and it's a great camaraderie. Our place is a really happy place. People come in, they're happy, they're moving forward. If you come and see us twice a month for a group meeting, you have a 92% chance of not going back and gambling. And that is staggering. So that's why this is a happy podcast. Like, you can get help. If you're ready for it, you can.
Solutions are there.
Yes.
Yeah, but on the online thing, I was interested where you were going with that. And you mentioned that you're not a fan of it, obviously. I think one of the more interesting things I ever read was there was a period when Sheldon Adelson was really lobbying against the online. And everyone said he's just doing it because and he basically told the guy, if I wanted to be the biggest online casino operator, I could kill you all in terms of winning the market share, because I got the best brands, I got the best database, and I could put those brands online and make more money than anyone. And I think I agreed with him at the time. This was probably 10 years ago. But to see where it's gone today, and you have full-blown online sports betting everywhere almost, but you now have online gaming, and sweepstakes for all intents and purposes are online casinos. Sweepstakes casinos are basically the same thing, just with a way around it. Have these centers, yours or others, seen an increase in problem gambling or people needing help since it's changed?
Yes. And it's not our largest population, but it is a growing population within our group. And so that it is a serious problem. And I'll tell you why Sheldon Adelson did what he did, and that is Las Vegas Sands. He was the person that owned that. But his wife, Dr. Miriam Adelson, is an incredible expert in the space of addiction. And so she feels strongly about it. And that's really what we like to see in the industry, is people saying, hey, you know what? We've got the little medical tent down here. Let's make sure that they get the help and at least support it. It's like, you letting me come on here and talk to people about this. This is all I want. I just want people to know, hey, you can get help.
And he also brought up the point that at the time, I think he said 60%, maybe it's 50, 60, maybe it's more now, of his revenues were coming from non-gaming attractions and non-gaming amenities, which meant that his dependence on the gaming coming to Las Vegas wasn't as high as people thought it was. But I think there's also an interesting thing. Everyone thought that as sports betting changed and sports betting went to Arizona and all these other states, that it would reduce sports betting in Vegas. It's only increased it. It's almost like the gateway in terms of people experiencing. Now they want to come to the Mecca, which is Las Vegas, and they want to experience more of. It's almost increasing the market of people coming here. So I think that was also a very interesting point that was made by Sheldon Adelson, again, a decade ago, but it's all happening now. And I don't think Las Vegas will ever have online gaming, but obviously we have sports betting on mobile apps at this point, which still requires in-person signups, which other states do not require.
Which I think is important.
You do?
The in-person sign-up.
Why?
Because
again, every other state doesn't do it.
I think it's important because I think it adds that extra step of someone having to go and do it.
Yeah.
I'll take myself as an example. Kentucky Derby this year, I was like, oh, I'm going to bet on this horse. And I tried to go online. I tried.
You had no money in your app?
I tried. No, I didn't have an app, but I tried to do it. And they're like, you have to go. And I was like, oh, I have to go. And then I just forget it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But for that person with a problem, I do think that it adds that extra step that isn't going to make it as easy. To sign up, all they're asking you to do is go in person to sign up. It's not too big of an inconvenience for the avid sports bettor who doesn't have a problem.
Having seen in other countries where you can just literally take money from your bank account and have it online, and you can play any sports casino, any sports bet or any casino game or poker, it's pretty amazing how it was done. But keep in mind, it's probably happening anyway in the black market. So isn't it better to regulate it and then at least have some level of
100%.
Governance over it than people doing it anywhere on the black market?
100%. Because the illegal gaming space is huge. There's no protections there, and there's no regulation, obviously. So, yes, I do think that it's important to make sure that yes, the legal is better than the non-legal. I told you, I grew up in Vegas in the 80s. Like, just give me brick and mortar, okay? Give me my sports book. But I'm a little old school. I know the world's changing, but that's just a personal thought.
Do you think that some of the social media influencers that are utilized at some of the casinos that are live streaming their slots or their table games play, does that help with people's addictions? Like, to be able to just watch it and get their fix? Or does it hurt because it's more advertising?
It's probably more advertising it, but it's their right. We live in the United States of America, so you get to do what you want to do. And if you have a problem, it's incumbent upon you to get help. And so I am not that person that says that any kind of private business should have to do less to market themselves or do anything. It's incumbent upon you to get the help that you need. And so I am a little tough that way. I am a conservative. And so for me, it may be advertising it more. But if you have a problem, we have the best center in the country.
I think, Gary, to answer your question, it's important for those influencers to do it responsibly and to explain to people what they're really doing. I think the ones that just show their wins, it is dangerous because these slot machines today are built with such incredible technology, and they're so fun and frankly maybe more addictive than the old single reels used to be, but they're just incredible games. And now you see these second screen bonuses that people are chasing and they want them, and the fun only begins when you really get that second screen bonus. And I think you see a lot of these influencers where they only post their wins. I think the guys that are showing that, look how much money I'm losing, but I'm having fun doing it.
Right.
I think that's important because they're doing it as a business and they're making a living doing it and they're making a lot of money doing it, as we talked about with Vegas Matt on a few episodes ago. I think if you see how much they're losing it, I don't want to do that. Right. But it's the guys that are just showing, look, I just won 20 grand, look how easy it was, or whatever it is. That probably does create people's, I want to do that. It's easy for me to do that. And then they get chasing these second screen bonuses, and very few people are winning 20 grand or whatever it is. No one's making a living just on the slots. They're making a living on YouTube and other promos.
And all their advertising that they're putting out on social media.
I did want to talk to you, Stephanie, about something that came up in a question that I had the other day for a TV show. But you said 94% of people don't have a problem. They just gamble. What are they gambling? What's their reason for gambling? What do 94% of people choose to gamble for?
It's entertainment.
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
It could be escaping. It could be escapism. It could be relaxation. I know some people that come out here for 3 days and they turn their phone off because they just want to play video poker. They just want to play slots. But it's not an addiction. It's their form of relaxation. It's their form of meditation.
They're doing it for their 3 days, yeah.
It's what they want to do. And then they play their budget. They stick within their budget. They leave. And I think when somebody asks me, do you feel like morally it's a good industry to be in? And I think it's a great industry to be in because I think we don't even think of it in the sense of, oh, you're coming here to gamble. You're coming here because you want to have a great time. You're going to have a great meal at Oscar's. You're going to have fun. You're going to see a show. You're going to go to a nightclub. You're going to go to a concert. You're going to do all the fun things that you do in Las Vegas. And by the way, there's the gambling, which is an element that is in the market. And I think people do that. They have their budgets. They come here from Wisconsin and they go back home and they do that within their budgets that they're comfortable with. I think that's very different to the world that you're living in and what you're seeing.
100%. I live in both worlds, right? I love gaming. I love gaming. I think it's an incredible industry. And by the way, this town was built on that industry. So I am a huge advocate of gaming. There's a small percentage of people that have a problem. And that's with anything, though. With
Correct.
anything that you do, there's going to be a percentage of individuals that do it to excess or have a problem with it. Even we look at kids now, we're trying to make an impact there with video games. Just the kids playing the video games and the loot boxes and all this stuff. That can be addictive. So you just need to, everything in moderation is,
Right.
is mine.
But do you have partners or people that are out there identifying who are the problem gamblers and then helping them get to you? What's your marketing?
We do a lot of outreach. So obviously there's a lot of comorbidity in addictions. So we will go to substance addiction centers, and then we'll let them know, hey, gambling's also an addiction and this is a problem. So once they get through that treatment, they can come see us. Sometimes it's simultaneous. So we do a lot of that kind of outreach. I'm working to go to senior homes, right? Because we have a lot of seniors that will get in a bus and just go to and that's what they're doing for their fun. And that can be dangerous. And so we're making sure that they know that if they need help, we're there for them. If you live in a senior home and the bus is going to a certain local casino and you're spending all of your retirement, that's a problem. We're just trying to let people know we're here. And if you get to that point where you're going past your limits.
They would call you, or they...
Yes, and we do advertising. And this year, the Super Bowl, not the Super Bowl, but the Raiders really worked with me to get a great ad in our programs so that we got a super reduced rate. So we'll actually have an ad in the program this year that'll just be an awareness ad to say, hey, this is real, just so you know, if you need help.
Amazing.
We took an ad on the next page with a great casino offer.
Oh, good.
That's a joke.
No, it's okay. No, the whole thing is that's why they called me. They're like, listen, it's all gaming. There's nothing to say if you have a problem.
Have you heard the joke about the husband and wife that go to the casino and...
I love your jokes. I love them, especially when you put them out
on the marquee. Okay, I'm not going to tell the joke.
No, tell me. Go ahead.
No, I'm not going to tell the joke.
Tell it.
What about AI? Have you used AI in the industry to help identify ways that you could, or better identify potential problem gamblers?
No.
Or technology at any point for people to use to identify themselves that they have these habits?
We have not gone there yet, but we did receive some information, and there was a conference last year that's incredible. Our Institute of Gaming here at UNLV, the IGI, International Gaming Institute, they had this conference, and they did a whole thing on AI, and it's coming for sure. We'll have to use it to our best ability, but it is not within our purview at this time.
Okay. We always try to keep our episodes around 45 minutes to an hour.
That 40 minutes flew by.
Before Gary asks you his famous last question, is there anything else about the center or the industry that you would like the listeners to know about getting help or identifying it?
Can I give my phone number? Can I just do a quick ID?
Sure.
Yes. So our number is 702-363-0290, and our website is gamblingproblems.org. If you or someone you know, we're there for you.
That's it? That's all you want them to know?
I've talked a lot.
You have.
Stephanie just ruined my outro right there.
Oh, you'll do it again. You'll do it again. But give Stephanie the chance to...
Yeah, so is there any life advice or career advice you'd like to give to our listeners, young listeners, either moving to Las Vegas, or what do you have? We need some words of wisdom.
Gamble responsibly.
So in my space as a
it can be whatever you want.
Executive director, this is what I think. I'm a mom of 2 teenagers. I think if you're young and you're in Las Vegas, you have to find something that you love, and you need to do that. You need to not get caught in some of the traps that Las Vegas can provide, and you need to have a life that's well-rounded. If you find that you are here and you get wrapped up and you're making those kind of decisions where instead of going out with your friends, you're sitting at a machine, there's a problem. So sometimes a lot of people will come and move here and they realize maybe Las Vegas isn't right for me. I have friends that have moved from here because Las Vegas wasn't right for them. It's everywhere, right? Las Vegas, I mean, you're getting gas. So it's everywhere. So you just need to be cognizant of that and understand that if
most of our guests' advice is move to Vegas. It's the best place. And it's funny that we say this and you're saying cautionary on the other side, but I think when you think about everyone that says move to Vegas, the best place in the world to be, and I agree with them. I think it is the greatest city in the world, and I love living here.
I do too.
But what affords us this quality of life? What affords this great city to be as great as it is and to develop the way it's developing? And you see this, it's all, as we talked about with Virginia, it's all, what does the gaming industry provide to this town that allows it to be so wonderful? And so there is the hospitality and tourism industry is everything to this, to all of our quality of life in the city. Yes, there's the cautionary tale, and yes, there's also the brilliance of the industry and what it does for the city.
And what I will say is, as a tourist coming here, this downtown, the Strip, this is amazing, but there's so much more to Las Vegas. So if you are moving here and you live here, that's a piece of what Las Vegas is. There's so many, people don't, remember for years it was, do you live on the Strip? No, I don't live on the Strip. There's vibrant, amazing communities. And the gaming piece and what gaming has done for Las Vegas is just a piece of this incredible place.
Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us on the corner of Main Street. You can find out more about the Problem Gambling Center at, again, gamblingproblems.org or at 702-363-0290.
What about Stephanie's highly influential social media?
Go for it. What's your social media handles?
You
At
don't do anything else,
PGC, at PGC, yeah.
There you go.
At PGC.
That's
All right.
it? It's
Yeah.
just at PGC? Okay.
All right. Thanks again.
You a fan of On the Corner of Main Street? You're listening, so we'll assume that's a yes. So share the love, rate, review, and tell a friend to subscribe. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PlazaPod, on Facebook, Plaza Podcast, and feel free to write to the man himself at Jonathan Jossel. We'll see you next time, right here on the corner of Main Street.